Bigures Yesha Yemina. Eila Barecha, Eila Basusim, Anachnu B'Shem, Eila B'Chim Naskim. אנחנו קמנו במסגר. Shia, Hamelach Yavnenu, Yem Kohen. So there's the steam coming up here. But see, if you don't mind when you go down, you can pick up the steam a little bit higher. Maybe make it a 73. Okay, so we began to explain the mimer that we find different different things in Torah regarding hair, how it applies to, yeah? Yeah, there are workbooks. These are the workbooks. There's hair the way it applies to a Nazir. There's the laws of hair the way it applies to a Metsorah. And there's the laws of hair the way it applies to a woman.
Oh, yesterday Rabbi Majeski,
Yeah.
Rambam was about the Cheshvan of the Metsorah.
Oh, you see? Very often we find whatever we learn here in class, that's what's going on out there.
Yeah.
So that's another example.
What page?
What?
Page.
We're on page, on top of the page, it would say 111. I know I'm going back, but we need to go back to where to continue. Just to back up a little bit. So first of all, each one of them is different with halachas, and in each one there are differences. Nazir, when he's a Nazir, he has to let the hair grow. When it's over, he has to cut the hair. If he becomes tamei, again he has to cut the hair and start to let it grow again. It says by a Nazir, which means even in Nazir itself, it varies. Different times it's one way, different times it's another way. A Metsorah also, that he's supposed to, when he becomes Torah, he's supposed to cut all his hair. By a woman, it's a married woman, and doesn't say she has to cut her hair, but the hair should be covered. What is the difference in all these areas? Why? And a Levi is only in that generation, but not in future generations. Let's start again from 111, where it says Ha'inyan. The Inyan can be explained as follows, towards the bottom. So this is the Sechov and Semach Tzedek, the mitzvah to Galachas Metsorah. The mitzvah that a Metsorah has to cut his hair. Being the Metzina b'Torah, we see in the Torah, Pam Hegbiya Milas Asayis b'Me'od. At times, the Torah associates hair with something spiritually high and positive, Kamei b'Nazir, as it is regarding to a Nazir. It says in the pasuk, "Kodesh Yeh Gadol Pera Sar Reishei." His hair is holy. He shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow, and because it's holy, don't cut it. Because of Rabbi Shimshon, and that's what we find in reference to Shimshon. Shimshon had the status of a Nazir. Shekol Koicha B'Cyrus, that all his strength, that he had the superhuman strength, was because he had let his hair grow. Page 110. In times we find that the Torah puts down the hair as if it's something which is low and something which you have to eliminate. Canal being a Metsorah, like we mentioned before, regarding a Metsorah, he has to cut all his hair. And same thing regarding the Levium in the generation of the desert, they had to cut their hair. And the same thing our sages say regarding to a woman, Sar Be'isha Erva, referring to a married woman. If her hair is exposed, it's considered inappropriate, not tznius. So that's what we find down here in Halacha. In the spiritual realm, it is also here. That's the counterpart and the source and the origin of here that's down here. We got to be careful when we say here that's down here. One is H-A-I-R, one is H-E-R-E. So it's in the spiritual realm, all the things that exist here exist there as the source. So there's also here. And over there, we find also that in some places it's one way, in some levels it's another way. What are the differences? Cyrus Vatika Kadisha. Ayin Kuf is a acronym. In English, it's spelled out Atika Kadisha. And yesterday we showed you on the sort of chart, Atika Kadisha is a level of which is otherwise called Ein Sof, the infinite light of Hashem. And sometimes it's also referred to as Keser, the crown of Hashem. So this is the level which is above the 10 spheres. And there, it says in Kabbalah that there's here there. Remember, we said yesterday, it basically based on a pasuk in Daniel, where it says that he saw Hashem. And in that context, in that vision, he describes Hashem as Atik Yemen, the ancient one, but that's really Atika Kadisha, same level. And it says that Hashem's hair was white. So there's a spiritual level which is called hair, and that's actually the source of vitality for all the worlds. Page 113. Chochmah is the first of all the spheres. And where does Chochmah get its vitality from? So it says in Kabbalah, it gets it from Atika Kadisha. So that means that the hair of Atika Kadisha is something which is a conduit through which Atika Kadisha is able to provide vitality and sustenance to all the spiritual worlds. A sheikh inside is the Nukva, but in Kabbalah it says that in the sphere of Malchus, there's also something which we refer to as hair. And over there, true, that's a source of vitality, but it could also give vitality to external forces. The first I need to give a little introduction, which we didn't do this yesterday, about vitality to external forces. We find this also in Tanya, in the beginning of Tanya, that when a person does an Avera, it gives vitality to external forces. And here he's saying that from the hair of Malchus, there could be vitality and sustenance to the external forces, meaning to Klipa. On the surface, what's wrong with that? The Eibishter himself gave them sustenance. The Eibishter created them. The Eibishter wants them to exist. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a thing as Klipa in existence. So what are we doing wrong? So the answer is, what we're doing wrong is the Eibishter gives a certain measured amount of vitality to Klipa. Of course, we don't understand this in full, why Hashem gives life to Klipa in the first place, but the general idea of giving life to Klipa and creating Klipa is that there should be something which we call Bechira, free choice. If everything would only be positive in this world, and you don't see anything negative, there wouldn't be anything to choose from. This is the life of an angel. The whole purpose of creating this world is that they are humans, and they're attracted to things that are klipa, and they have to overcome that and do the right thing. So Hashem created klipa. So it's true, Hashem created klipa for that purpose. But when we do an Avera, we're actually providing them with much more vitality, much more chayas than they need in order to exist. And by giving them more than they really need, we're making them stronger than they should be. And that affects the balance in the world between good and evil. So again, to use an analogy, which is, of course, just an analogy to give some idea of what we're talking about, is that let's say there's someone who is an enemy of the country, and therefore they put this person in jail behind bars. But even though he's behind bars, they have to give him food, they have to give him clothing. If he's sick, they have to give him medication. There's things they have to give him. What if they also give him things that he can use to escape from the jail, or he can use to communicate with people outside of the jail and tell them about different crimes that they can commit? That's not necessary, and that's giving them strength which they don't need, and that's actually endangering everyone else's life. So to a certain extent, the same thing here. Hashem created Klippa, but Hashem gave them a minimal amount of vitality so that they should exist and there'd be free choice. And when we do an Aveira, we're giving them additional vitality. And that's what it's saying here, that Malchus is the Sphira, where from Malchus is also the same idea that the hair of Malchus is the conduit to which Malchus provides vitality and sustenance to the world. But when it goes through Malchus, it is something which it could also lead to giving extra unnecessary vitality to Klippa. The question is why? What's the difference? Yeah.
So at this point, like hair holds the status of Klippa Snoga.
What?
If I'm understanding correctly, does hair hold the status of Klippa Snoga? If it can channel if it brings vitality through the world, like from Malchus, but then can do the opposite, like what's?
I don't think it's even Klippa Snoga. I think that the hair is Kedusha. But from this, it could provide Chayas to Klippa, that it will become Klippa Snoga, and then Shalosh Klippa Atmeis and everything else that follows. But the hair itself is still Kedusha. It's coming from Sphere of Malchus.
So how could it?
So I'm going to explain how that happens. So the question is, what is hair? We said yesterday, hair is a metaphor for the hair really means tzimtzum, but it's a metaphor for not an ordinary tzimtzum, but a tzimtzum which is excessive. We gave an example yesterday, like in the organs in the body. The chayas, the vitality of the neshama in the brain is much more than what we have in emotion. We see that animals also have emotion. They get angry, they have love, they have feelings, but they don't have intellect. So intellect is the greater quality of chayas, a greater quality of soul energy. So the soul energy that's in emotion is less. The soul energy that's in the movements of the hands are even less. In fact, even animals could move their front legs. The soul energy that's in the legs, that's in the feet, that's in the heel, is the least. So that's called a tzimtzum, or ordinary tzimtzum, that the chayas gets less, less, and less. The tzimtzum that's physically in the body, in hair, is of a different category completely. Like we said yesterday, that in the heel, even though it's the heel, and the heel is like the least sensitive part of the body. We walk on our feet all day, and we walk on the heels, and that can handle things that we wouldn't be able to handle with other parts of our body. The skin and the other parts of the body are more sensitive. But nevertheless, you still feel pain. And especially if you take a knife and you cut something, let's say you cut a piece of skin on the heel, it's going to hurt. Hair, we see something very strange. On one hand, there's life there because it grows and it's attached to the person's body. On the other hand, you can take a scissor and cut it and you feel absolutely no pain. So what does it mean? It means that the life force in hair is so concealed, is so under a state of tzimtzum, to the extent it's as if it doesn't exist. It does exist, but it's as if it doesn't exist. So it's a different caliber of tzimtzum. And the same thing in Shamayim. Every sphera that leads to the next sphera, generally speaking, that's tzimtzum. Chochmah goes to Bina, that's lower. Bina goes to Das, that's lower. Das goes to Chesed, that's lower. Each one goes lower and lower and lower. When we say that a certain sphera or any level is now manifesting its light through here, that means it's not just going lower, but it's an excessive kind of tzimtzum, that the light that's going to be, or the sustenance that's going to come from this, is infinitely less and weaker than the source. So therefore, It depends where it's coming from. If it's coming from Atika Kadisha, it's a positive thing. If it's coming from Malchus, it could be a negative thing. What's the difference? What he's going to explain is that Atika Kadisha is a source that's infinite. The light over there is infinite. When infinite light goes through excessive tzimtzum, it's actually a positive thing. Because if it wouldn't go through excessive tzimtzum, it wouldn't be able to give life and vitality to the worlds. It would be too powerful, too overwhelming. Because the worlds are finite, this light is infinite. So the fact that it goes through excessive tzimtzum is a positive thing. The sphere of Malchus, which is the 10th sphere, in Malchus, the light of Hashem is already concealed. If you take a level which the light is already concealed, and then you add to that excessive tzimtzum, that symptom is already overboard, and that could lead that even those who are not really deserving of godly light will be able to nurture from it because the light of Hashem is so hidden. That's what it means. First, if you understand this, then we'll do it inside. Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah.
Got it? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Sorry to bother you, but and therefore, so the Indian is Cyrus. What is here? What is it? A metaphor? Or what does it mean? It's excess intellectual energy, and in general, wherever it is, it's like something. The overflow. It's a very hidden, concealed, and contracted energy. So the quality of the hair will always be dependent on the source where it's coming from. When we talk about Atika Kadisha, what is that? That's Ein Sof. That's higher than the spheros. That's the level in godliness which is infinite. So even this excess is Yeshbem Chayis Rab Lachis Koleilus. It has a tremendous amount of vitality to give life to all the worlds. And not only it has why, so and not only it has that life, but on the contrary, the fact that it goes through the process of this excessive tzimtzum is a positive thing. Adrabah. Dafka b'hem v'yodam, dafka through the hair, nimshach hachayis b'elamis. Why? This level of Atika Kadisha, as it is in its own right, the worlds can't receive that light because the worlds are finite, and this light is infinite, and finite cannot contain infinite. The finite world cannot contain a gili, a revelation of light or energy that's Ein Sof, that's infinite. 112. Elo, the only way it could contain it is Adeshim Samsum Cyrus. It has to go through Tzimtzum. Which Tzimtzum? The Tzimtzum of Cyrus. Because that Tzimtzum is so strong, so powerful, that it conceals the Ein Sof light completely, and the world can contain it. So therefore, in this context, this Cyrus that comes from Atika Kadisha is actually holy. It has the infinite light in it. And this is what the pasuk is referring to, and it says, Atik Yemen Yosef, Atik Yemen, which is Hashem, or referring to him as Atik Yemen, he's sitting. Levushe Keselek, this is the vision that he saw. Levushe Keselek Chiver, his garment that he's wearing was like white snow. The Sareshe, and the hair of his head, Omanaka, is like pure wool, also white. White. Pure wool. You mean the word white is only by the garment. Selek, the first one is like, it's like, wool is white. So this is also pure white wool. But one is white like wool, and one is white like snow. And there are Maimorim that explain what the difference is if it's white like wool or white like snow. Now we can understand a little bit the difference with regard to a nazir. During the day of his nazirus, the main nazirusay, so a nazir is a person. When he says the word, "I accept upon myself to become a nazir," those words have in it the power that connect him to Atika Kadisha. And it's enclosed in his hair. In other words, the hair this is how the mimer we learned before fits into the mimer we're learning now. The hair in the original source up there connects to the hair on his head. Rizal, the time of mitzvah is Pashas Nasei. The Rizal explains this according to Kabbalah, that when a person takes on and says he's a Nazir, then the hair on his head becomes connected to the hair of Atika Kadisha. And that's why he was cautioned and commanded. And now he's not allowed to cut his hair. On the contrary, it's a mitzvah to let the hair grow. Why? Because this hair is positive. And just like if somebody would go to the Cyrus Natika Kadisha and cut that off, then the worlds couldn't get their vitality. So too, on a personal level, if you cut that hair, he's cutting off his source of vitality. But again, this hair is Kedusha. This also applies to every person in a different way. How? The hair of the beard, ubepayas, or the payas, which is on the side. Meir ha'ora megedusha cyrus or yenas the dikna ilah the payas. There's a pasuk, we have it here in the booklet on page 65. Let's see it on the side. This is the source of the mitzvah where you're not allowed to cut the beard or the payas. Leisakifu, page 65. It's a pasuk in Gedeshim. Leisakifu pa'as reishchem. Do not round the corners of the hair on your head. Leisashches, do not destroy as pa'as gon on the edges of your beard. So one is called payas. Payas is over here, this part of the hair, and the beard. These two things, again, in halacha, there are different questions. What does it mean? Only to shave it with a razor, otherwise it is okay. But according to Kabbalah, it really means in general not to cut it off for the same reason. What's the reason? Because the hair is connected to Atika Kadisha, to a very high level in Kedusha, and through the hair, it's able to manifest. And by cutting the hair, I'm not allowing myself to receive from that light. By the way, that Atika Kadisha, we'll learn a bit later, it corresponds, this is the level of Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, the 13 attributes of mercy. So it's in a sense saying that the 13 attributes of mercy of Hashem, they are able to be drawn down into this world through certain conduits. And the conduit is the hair up there. And a man who has the beard on his face, the physical beard, is connected to the hair of Atika Kadisha, of the 13 attributes of mercy. If he cuts off the beard, it's like somebody who has a supply of oil or a supply of water, and there are pipes that they carry it, and you go and you cut off the pipe. You cut off the pipe, you can't get that sustenance. So that's why, according to Kabbalah, you're not allowed to. So we have the example of the Nazir, we have the example by every person of a beard, by a man. But by a Nazir, it doesn't only affect the beard, it affects all the hair in the entire body. So obviously, there's much more here to learn about and understand why a Nazir is this deep way, and by a regular person is that. It all has to do with the specific situation. But he's not going into all those details, just a general idea. And the general idea is that both the hair of a beard or the Nazir are connected to hair in the Shemayim, in the spiritual realm, of a very high level. But in contrast to that, Nukva Batzilus, which is Malchus. Shiva B'chinas Tzimtzum L'gabi Atik Vadisha. Malchus itself is already much more contracted the light and concealed compared to Atik Vadisha. Malchus is concealed light. Page 114. Oz B'chinas Meisre Meichet Shela Yuchalias Nigaz Achitzeni. So if the light, thank you, if a light which is already concealed, we go ahead and we conceal it even more, not just conceal it more, we conceal it with an excessive tzimtzum, then it becomes so dark that Klippus could also get chayes. So basically, Klippa cannot receive when godliness is shining, because they're Klippa, they're not a vessel to receive when godliness. The only way they can get, it's like, we can use an example, like a lot of the interesting creatures that come out at night from the woodworks, they come out at night. When the light is on, they stay in the woodworks. And when the light gets closed, they come out. In a sense, it means Klippa is not a vessel for godly light. Godly light would destroy them, it would overwhelm them. Remember, we learned in the Maimon that even angels, holy angels, the amount of light of Hashem that they get is measured. And if Hashem sticks out his little finger, which means it gives them a little bit more than what they can handle, they can't exist. So Klippa is lahavdil, not like holy angels, they're Klippa. But because they're Klippa, they can't receive godly light when it's exposed, only when it's hidden. And what we're doing is we're taking godly light, and in the world of Malchus, it becomes hidden. Then on top of that, it goes through excessive tzimtzum through the hair. And that's where you need caution that the light that's coming through Malchus and through this hair should only go to a positive place and not to a negative place. That's why a woman's source in the spiritual realm is the sphere of Malchus. And therefore a woman is not allowed to expose her hair. There's another question, why only a married woman? But I'll have to do some research on that. So this is the reason why when you're dealing with Malchus, it means a woman begashmis. The hair on her head, begashmis, is getting chayis from Malchus of Atzilus. And that Malchus, it is already concealed. And that's how it gives chayis to the other worlds. But the hair makes the excessive concealment. So obviously the hair itself is still not negative. That's why that the hair is okay to be there. But to expose the hair, that will allow klipa to get chayis. So in other words, in a certain sense, just like if you look at it not from a spiritual, Kabbalistic point of view, you look at it just from a halacha point of view. How do they explain it? That hair, according to Torah, is like exposing other parts of the body that are inappropriate, and it could lead to different things that are going to happen, which are not going to be tznius. That's the way you explain it in halacha. But the source of that is that if the hair is exposed in the spiritual realm, then klipa could get chayes. And whatever I do down here causes the same thing to happen up there.
Why there, Kilo? Why dafka there?
I just explained, because the hair is excessive symptom. Every part of the body is connected to something in Shemayim. So therefore, the Eibishter created a person with eyes. There's a level up there which are also eyes. And there's a level up there which are hands and feet and legs and all the organs, all the 613 organs. But here, in the body, also has a source. So what I do with my hair down here affects the hair up there. If I expose it here, it gets exposed there. If it gets exposed there, clip it and get chayes. Yeah.
Just to clarify, you're saying if hair is kedusha, the hair is klipa up there or kedusha up there, whatever we do here is a reflection. So that's why we cover our hair so that
Right.
the klipa doesn't latch onto the kedusha of the hair.
Right. So if I cover my hair, then the Maila in Malchus of Atzilus, it's covered. And what happens if it's covered? If it's covered, then it's filtered. It only goes to a good place. It doesn't go to Klippa. Klippa can't get to
Because
it.
in that way, it's like for everyone, the way it's shown,
Right.
like, it goes to everyone, whereas
Right.
when you're covering it, you're kind of.
Right. I mean, what's happening right now in Gaza, if you're familiar with what's going on, that the United States is demanding that Israel give them food. Right? What's happening? Hamas comes, they steal all the food. The whole point was that they shouldn't have food, to starve them to death or to surrender. So instead, they're forcing us to feed them because they have to give the Gazans food. But it's not going to the people, it's going to the criminals. This is mamish, this singing. It's hashpah, it's sustenance. But if you don't do it with caution, it goes to the wrong place. And you're accomplishing the exact opposite of what you want to accomplish. You're trying to give people life and to give them protection. By giving this food, you're causing the murderers to be stronger and to be able to continue murdering people. It's mamish what's happening.
So using that muscle, like the way that it radiates in that zealous is like so like plentiful and like abounding that there's no, like, it overflows. Like that's how strong the Kedusha is, that it has that effect for the klipa. Am I understanding that correctly?
Again,
Like the Kedusha of there is like copious amounts,
right.
overflowing. Is that why? Like because it's such a strong Kedusha that it still gives energy to the klipa? Almost like without a dam. You know, like, and it would, otherwise it would like overflow. Am I understanding that?
No, yeah, well, that's why there has to be a cover.
Right.
That's what the cover is, to limit it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The cover is in a way, it's a different way of saying to caution that it should go only to the right place, not to the wrong place.
But why only after the marriage?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe because a woman is more in touch with her malchus when she's married, and like.
I would think that's what always comes to my mind, that obviously the connection to Malchus is in a more complete way when she's married. Maybe it has to do with that. But I did once see something in a letter from the Rebbe about it, but I didn't understand it. I have to look at that again. Maybe I became smarter over the years. To explain this and bring it down closer to our understanding. That's the whole point of Chassidus, to take concepts of Kabbalah, concepts about spirituality, and to study them and understand them just like we understand things in Gemara, to make it more acceptable in our brain. So we'll explain it with a mashal. You and Aderech Maimer Azal, a pasuk ve'alehu le'liber. There's a pasuk in Tehillim where it says that their leaves never wither. This is a pasuk in Tehillim, right in the beginning, the first chapter of Tehillim, talking about tzaddikim. What does it mean their leaves don't wither? I guess you walk outside, you see what it means. You walk outside and there's leaves all over the floor. So the Gemara explains it means even the ordinary conversation of a Torah scholar must be studied. In other words, this is going to be a mashal for Cyrus in a different way. Generally speaking, a Talmud Chacham, we're talking about a person who is a very wise person. Person who's a Torah scholar, understands things in Torah in a very deep way. And then sometimes there's a conversation that's not a Torah conversation. It's something about things which appear to be ordinary things, where he'll tell somebody to do this or to do that, and bring me a coffee. Okay, and that conversation is just like everybody else or anybody else. The Gemara says no. When a real, great, giant Torah scholar speaks, even those things which he says, which appear to be ordinary conversations, you should study them, because there's a lot of depth in what comes out of his mouth, even if it's an ordinary conversation. That's what it means that their leaves don't wither. Even the leaves which supposedly fall off, there's a lot of wisdom there as well. And why is that? Because he's so great. and there's divine wisdom in him. So Gama Hayad, even things that come out of his mouth, which appear to be like some sort of a casual statement, but because he's so much filled with so much deep wisdom, even that is K'may Meisra Meichen. It's something which is excess intellectual energy, not in a physical way, but because through his speech. This is not like giving a shir or explaining something in Torah. So it's something which is more external. Sicha ba'alma, just a mere conversation. Nevertheless, there's something to learn from it. Actually, not just something. There's divine wisdom in his ordinary conversation, just like in his Torah conversation. Reb Shimon, the Gemara says that Reb Shimon learned from an ordinary conversation of Gamliel Galil. He learned two concepts, in other words, two principles in halacha. He learned just from his ordinary conversation, from something that he said, the way he said it, how he said it, the words that he used, the order he said it in, or the circumstance that he said it, taught him certain halachas. And these two concepts is halach, it's part of Torah. But how did it come to him? Not through a direct Torah conversation, but through a casual conversation. But what about an ordinary person? And the ordinary person, he's going to say something which is not Torah, but just an ordinary conversation. This will be considered idle talk. Now, in fact, this would be considered soiled garments. That was mentioned in the mimer, the part that we skipped. So if you don't recognize it, don't be surprised. For a man, Devarim B'Teilim is an Isa, which means there's a pasuk in Chumash, which is in Shema, we say it every day, the Dibarta Bam, you should speak words of Torah. So the Gemara says, from this we learn, you should speak words of Torah, and you're not allowed to speak words, which is an idle conversation. So for a man, anything that comes out of his mouth has to be something of content. Idle conversation is considered something negative. It could be klipas noga, it could be worse than that, but if it's not Torah, it's already something negative. So for an ordinary person, we don't say that whatever comes out of his mouth, just like that, is also deep wisdom. No, when he comes out of his mouth, it's really stam, or could even be nonsense. And if it's even if it's klipas noiga, it brings a certain impurity on his godly soul. Because these are soiled garments. We know that speech is one of the garments, and being that it's not godly, so it's soiled garments. The way it was supposed to be is that he should dress himself in holy garments, which is thought, speech, and action of kedusha. Like it says in Yuma, here it is, what I just said, that if a man who engages in ordinary conversation, he's transgressing a positive commandment. Which commandment? The dibar tabam. You should speak words of Torah. Okay, we need more time, but we're going to explain, use this as a mushal, that the ordinary, casual conversation of a great Torah giant and the casual conversation of an ordinary person would be the same thing as the difference between here that comes from Atika Kadisha or here that comes from Malchus.
Yeah. Oh, 9:30.
Okay? Okay, see you later, Mr. Hashem, in the Mashiach class.
For many
Yeah.
Yeah.
A woman learns Torah, she has a mitzvah, but there's no obligation that she has to learn every moment. Women are exempt from those mitzvahs because that takes away from her responsibility as the mother and as the wife. Yeah. Okay. So remember, there's a change of schedule. Rabbi Greenberg teaches at 10:30, and I'll be teaching Mashiach Gula at 11:15. I hope that's the schedule.